Welcome back to IGN Live at E3 2018. I'm Max, and I'm here with Daniel from IGN Japan.
Hello.
And Scott from Sega, who's all about the localization for Yakuza Kiwami 2, a game that I'm very excited about talking about. Thank you for coming by. Obviously, Yakuza is a tricky series to get into. Once you get into it, I think people are pretty much ride or die. I've fallen madly in love with it.
I appreciate it. I love the outfit.
Can you run us through a little bit what Kiwami 2 is? It's the sequel to Kiwami. What does that mean, if anybody's just tuning in?
Yakuza Kiwami is a remake of Yakuza 2, which originally came out on the PlayStation 2 back in 2008. It's a full-fledged, ground-up, shot-for-shot remake of that game inside Yakuza 6's Dragon Engine. So everything that was once a PS2 graphic is now just beautifully rendered in PS4 beauty.
And I know a lot of people, obviously, like, Zero came out, and that's sort of the prequel, and a lot of people think that's a good jumping-on point, but Kiwami is a remake of 1. That's a really good starting point. 6 can be played as alone, as a standalone thing. Kiwami 2, obviously, these are iterative. You're always adding new features and new things and bells and whistles to kind of really just make the experience better. Can you talk a little bit, just right off the bat, about sort of the new systems in play here with 2?
Right, so Kiwami 2 was the first game that featured Sotenbori, so people who are familiar with Zero are going to get a real nice kind of throwback to that. We've also added, I think the biggest thing is, of course, 3 chapters of playable Majima, which details the situation that happened between Kiwami and Yakuza 2, explaining kind of how he becomes a construction worker of all things.
Now, obviously, a lot of people got to meet sort of Majima through, he got his wonderful backstory in Zero. He got kind of fleshed out as a character, and he's become like this fan favorite. I'm going to ask this right now. You're not going to give me a straight answer. Are we ever going to get like a straight Majima game, like where it's just him?
The devs are busy. They are working on things, but they're not opposed to spin-offs, I think. So that's a question that they often get because Majima's a fan favorite no matter where you go.
I think originally when the first game came out, I don't think the team had obviously not expected that he would become such a sort of a key part of the series, right? And now that they've kind of gone back and started remaking or rebuilding the games 1 and 2, it's like this opportunity to sort of flesh out his story, right?
Exactly, and you're seeing that happen live. The Yakuza 0, he stole the show, and then Kiwami got the Majima Everywhere system where he's just popping out of manholes and out of bathrooms or whatever. And now in Yakuza Kiwami 2, we've got this full-fledged story of between the 2 games, as well as Clan Creator, which we've completely revamped from Yakuza 6, and now you're defending Majima Construction from these real estate wrestlers as Kiryu and Majima together.
So yeah, if anyone's unfamiliar, this is a very, very silly series. We're about to see something. Now this seems completely ludicrous. This seems like a nonsense thing made up for a video game. Not delinquents. After that, there's a mini game in here that is based on a real Sega product. Can you talk a little bit about the toilets?
Toilets! Yes, is a minigame, a urinal-based minigame intended to help keep urinals clean by keeping your aim centered in where you need it to be, right? And you can play these 2 minigames inside of Yakuza Kiwami 2, featuring bathroom gameplay.
I've actually played this in real life in Tokyo.
Have you?
Sometimes you'll come across it in like an arcade, in the restrooms in an arcade. And it's sort of, gauging where you're peeing to make sure you get it in the right spot.
Yes.
It's good fun, man. Gamifying everybody's most basic.
Got two different peeing mini games called Milky Nose Splash Battle, where you'll be playing as 2 different thugs spraying milk at each other through their noses, and the North Wind, the Sun, and Me, which is a whole other thing entirely.
It's completely ludicrous. I think we're actually finally about to check it out. This guy's going to kind of upsell us on this.
So this man in the suit's going to be inviting Kiryu to test out the new prototype urinal toilets, and Jacob's going to be kind of blowing through the dialogue here, but you'll definitely get the sense of what he's going for in a second here.
Now, obviously, you're with Kiwami 2. You're working from a script of a game that exists out there. But have there been any changes to the sort of the story or the sort of the beats, or how much?
We went through line by line and essentially relocalized the game. So we brought in the original script and said, okay, this was written in 2008. There's some things we can do to make it a little fresher, a little better. And also, I think just in terms of what people are familiar with in terms of Japanese culture has changed over the last 10 years. So like things like senpai and aniki and those words that are almost become English language things are things that we can now put it directly into the script rather than writing around them in these weird, awkward ways.
Now, you do an incredible job of localizing Yakuza? Like, there's so much humor that I feel like could get lost in translation or just left on the floor or just completely like steamrolled over. Can you talk a little bit about like what that's like and how it is like to not just translate but to localize and really kind of make sense out of things?
That's my job, I guess, is literally making sense out of things. And it comes down to making them speak in a way that our audience would be appreciative and familiar with. Majima has a very slang style of speaking, and I think people have really identified and warmed up to that. Here we are, and sorry, I got distracted by Milky Nose.
Wow.
We should probably talk about the peeing here. This is. I don't even know where to start talking about this game, but here's a peeing minigame.
This could actually be you, Max. I mean, seeing it from the back.
The object of the game was to match that other dude's
Yeah.
gauge, and the way the better you match it, the blast gauge feels faster. When you hit that blast gauge, you go full force on R2, and you'll eventually knock him off. But unfortunately, the NPC beat our player here.
So yeah, the mini games are obviously like a huge part of the Yakuza games. Are there any other new ones for Kiwami 2?
Yes, so we have toilets, obviously, as well as Virtual On, fully playable in the arcade, Virtual Fighter 2.1. There's a new golf bingo type game. Clan Creator's back. The Hostess Club is back from Yakuza 0. It's basically a picks up right where that one left off. It's like a sequel. You'll run into Yuki if you're familiar with her, and it's incredible, that whole storyline. So a lot of new stuff that's been added into Kiwami 2 in terms of minigames. The casino is back too. The casino, the crane games, all that, a lot of stuff that people really liked from Zero Kiwami, all back in Kiwami 2.
I have a question. When you're putting in those older games, like Virtua Fighter or whatever, and you're localizing, Kiwami itself, do you have to go back and relocalize those old games, or do you have like old localized versions that you're putting in there?
What's neat about those old games is a lot of them are already in English, even in Japanese, because the Japanese they just associate games with English sometimes, and so menus and the stuff that would be really difficult for our audience to understand is already in English, and the things that are in Japanese, we leave those in there because of their flavor. You can still appreciate the game while maybe seeing the Japanese here and there, but as long as you can play it and understand what's going on, it's okay. And that's exactly why we don't really have to touch them.
Awesome. Now, going back to the sort of Majima side stories, I'm curious, can they be played alone, or are they rolled into the main story?
It's neat. It's 3 different chapters that'll unlock as you play the game. So in Chapter 4, you'll get your first unlock of Majima's first chapter, and you can go back and play that. And as Majima, you can actually feed Kiryu by sending him money via ATMs. They organized this this gift for the 4th chairman, and Majima's getting money and sending it to Kiryu and being like, haha, this is great.
They have such a wonderful relationship. I love that. It's cute. Now this is God, I love these games. I don't know. Once you're in, I feel like you're in there. I just finished 6 in what, April?
Awesome. Yeah.
And already we're getting another one. This is coming out in August 28th. That's nuts. And then there's it just got announced that in Japan they're getting a remaster of 3.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. So there's no shortage of Yakuza games to come.
Every time I feel like I'm caught up, I'm not.
Exactly. Yeah. What is your preferred order to recommend them in?
You can start with 0 or Kiwami. So whichever one you've got accessible, go for it. They're both pretty accessible right now. It kind of just changes the relationship with the games as you go, because you either see the game as it was intended first, like the first game, and then go back and see the beginning as they started, and it changes your relationship with Kiryu and Majima. Or you start right at the prequel and then see where they go to the first game. So 0 and Kiwami have this duality, this sister title relationship that really works no matter where you start with that. And then from there on, like you said, the series just opens up, and Kiwami 2 is absolutely where you go from there.
Yeah, once you jump in, you're in there. Now, one thing I think is curious is because this is made in the engine from 6.
Yes.
But it's set in what year is this?
2006.
2006. Obviously, there was some sort of there's Kiryu had a smartphone. Does he still have that, or is
He's
that
got the old
like a brick.
what are those called?
A flip phone.
Yeah, flip phone,
yeah.
Right? And it's got the emails even look a little dated and things like that. And they did a good job making it go back to kind of 2006 style.
Back in 2006, we had to take photographs using digital cameras that weren't attached to our phones. Does the camera mode?
We brought the selfie mode back. It's too fun. It's too fun.
Okay, good. Because I love that he's got the, what is it, over 8 different grimaces?
Yes, and you can do that with Majima now too. You can take Majima selfies.
Majima selfies that's I'm sold. Yes.
One thing I didn't point out was that he's got the weapons now. So we brought back the whole weapon system. You can find weapons lying on the ground and stash them. And so you've got the left, up, and right on the D-pad, and you bring out the 3 weapons you've got stored, and all these weapons have their own unique heat actions. We've more or less doubled the amount of heat actions that you saw in 6. A lot of contextual stuff. So you've got allies around town, where if you complete their sub-story and make friends with that person, and then if you are in a fight near that person, they'll join in your heat action and kind of. They're great. That's all I don't want to spoil anything, but you'll meet dominatrixes and plumbers. And
That's nice. Now, Daniel, you live in Japan. How accurate would you say the Yakuza games are? How
Well,
often
you know, when you're walking around the streets of Tokyo, you're always just getting in fights with chimpira and all that kind of. Not really, but I mean, the map of the Kamurocho area of the game is obviously based on Kabukicho, which is a real area in Shinjuku in Tokyo. And I mean, it's pretty much street for street. It's a slightly compressed version, but it's pretty close. And
it feels like if you go there, you would kind of know where you are from having played Yakuza.
Absolutely, yeah. And
same with Dotonbori, which is representation of Sotenbori, which is in Osaka, which is kind of the plot of Yakuza 2. Kiryu and this Tojo clan that got wrecked in Kiwami are now faced with the fact that the Omi Alliance in Kansai is looking at them for war, and Kiryu now has to negotiate a peace treaty, essentially, and things don't go well for him.
I wonder if people in the States, when they're playing this game, they go into Don Quixote, which is a real store in
Absolutely.
Japan. And it's a very well-known sort of chain, usually 24-hour open, and it's a store that just sells everything.
Yeah.
From floor to ceiling with the narrowest aisles,
Yeah,
and,
banana cushions that never change price.
Exactly. Yeah, it's cool to see that in a game that comes out in the West, this store that we're also familiar with in Japan.
Yes.
I feel like the amount of, I don't know if you'd call it product placement, but real brands that exist in Yakuza. In this case, it really adds to realism. You've got like you'll go to bars and there's like a full whiskey list. What's the business side of that like? Is it sort of like do the creators, are they like, hey, we want to have realistic whiskey, or is it like?
So I don't know if you may have talked to Sato-san last year, but that man knows his whiskey. Like, you could talk to that dude about whiskey for hours. And
yeah.
I mean, so all of their passion is legit for all this stuff. And I don't have to work on the deals myself. It comes to me, and I'm just localizing the content. But the way that they incorporate those brands is really incredible. All the tie-ups and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if it was, if it was in an American game, you'd almost be like, okay, they paid to have that in there. But in this case, it seems almost like it's a,
Yeah, there's like a mutuality to it. Even if you go down to Don Quixote when the Yakuza game's coming out in Japan, they've got the big ad and where the host banners are around the little past the batting cages. You'll find ads for Yakuza games there all the time because they know exactly kind of what's going on.
There are some noodle shops as well where the noodle shop is in the game, and then in the real noodle shop they have like little posters and maybe a special menu when the game comes out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, like the Yakuza games, I feel like they're, they tried to make it big in the West and with the first one when it first got localized, and it never really caught on. And I think they're finally getting it. Like, people are finally really getting on board. What's the fan culture like? And this is a question for, I guess, for both of you. What's the fan culture around Yakuza like in Japan?
Well, when you go somewhere like Tokyo Game Show, there's a cosplay area, and you'll see so many people turning up dressed. You would fit in no problem at all, and you'll see even women come dressing as the male characters, and because the series is really popular with female players as well in Japan, and you see this like incredible passion. They did I think it was it Yakuza 5 where there was an audition. Where you could actually, women could audition to be in the game and be sort of ambassadors.
Right, yeah.
And I went to the audition.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and there's all the development team, and Nagoi-san, at the time he was, I guess, the director or the producer, was sitting there, and all these, rabid fans were coming in and just so excited to do their performance to get chosen for the game.
Yeah, and to speak to the fans in America, those guys don't know slouches either. It's been incredible watching this groundswell of people and them welcoming more people as it grew, as Yakuza 0 hit at just the right time and just the right fever pitch that develops,
And there's more to come after that, too. I imagine we'll be having a similar conversation a year from now talking about...
Fist of the North Star, we just announced that one.
That's effectively a post-apocalyptic cel-shaded Yakuza. So I'm happy there's more Yakuza games to play. There's all sorts of other new games, but no, I want to hang out with Kiryu and Majima. They're my guys.
Appreciated.
August 28th, that's out on PS4?
PS4.
Wonderful. We've got lots more coverage from E3 coming up, so don't go anywhere. Keep it right here on IGN.